My husband, the man I'd shared a bed with for nearly 2 decades, looked at me with eyes I no longer recognized and made a request that wasn't about love or connection or even us. He wanted to watch me with other men. He didn't just want it. He had planned it. He wanted to sit in a chair in the corner of our bedroom, the room where our children were conceived, and watch as 2 strangers explored every inch of the body he had long since forgotten how to touch. He wanted to turn my skin, my breath, my pleasure into a show for his own dark satisfaction. This is the story of how that one forbidden request unraveled a lifetime of secrets and lies. If you've ever found yourself fascinated by the stories that hide in the shadows, the desires that live just beyond the boundaries of what's considered proper, then you're in the right place. Go ahead and press that subscribe button. You'll find you're not alone in your curiosity. My name is Amelia, and when this all started, I was 47 years old. My husband, Richard, had just turned 50. We lived in a quiet, respectable neighborhood just outside of Portland, Oregon, in a house with a garden I tended to meticulously. From the outside, we were the picture of stability. 20 years of marriage, 2 kids grown and out of the house, a shared history that was supposed to be our fortress. But fortresses can become prisons, can't they? The silence in our home had grown so loud it was deafening. Our conversations were about bills, about the leaky faucet, about whose turn it was to take out the recycling. The physical side of our marriage, well, that had faded from a warm ember to cold, dead ash. It had been months, maybe longer, since he touched me with any real intention. A perfunctory kiss on the cheek before he left for his accounting firm was the most I could expect. I told myself it was normal. This is what happens after 2 decades. Right. The fire settles down. Life gets in the way. But deep down, I felt a gnawing loneliness, a feeling of being invisible. Have you ever felt that way? Like you're a ghost in your own life, just moving through the motions? Then one Thursday evening, everything changed. The rain was coming down in sheets, that persistent Oregon drizzle that seeps into your bones. I'd made his favorite, a beef bourguignon, the rich smell filling the kitchen. I was hoping it might spark something, a memory of our earlier, happier days. He came home, hung his coat, and walked into the kitchen. He didn't comment on the food. Instead, he poured himself a glass of whiskey, a double, and watched me stir the pot. "Amelia," he began, his voice strangely flat. "We need to talk." My stomach did a slow, cold flip. Those are the 4 words that every wife dreads. I turned off the stove and leaned against the counter, crossing my arms over my chest. "Okay, Richard, what is it?" He swirled the amber liquid in his glass. "I'm not happy," he said, not looking at me. "I'm bored. Sexually, our life, it's become so predictable." A wave of shame and anger washed over me. I'd bought new lingerie that sat, unworn, in my drawer. I'd suggested weekend trips that were always dismissed because of his work schedule. "I've tried." "Richard," I said, my voice tight. "You're the one who seems uninterested." "Because it's the same old thing," he snapped, his eyes finally meeting mine. They were cold, assessing. "I need something more. We need something more. And I think I found the solution." He told me then. He spoke about it as if he were discussing a business proposal. He'd been on some websites, forums for men who shared his particular tastes. He'd connected with 2 other men, professional, he assured me, clean, discreet. They were interested in an arrangement that involved me. "I've arranged for them to come over this Saturday night," he said, taking a sip of his whiskey. I stared at him, the smell of the rich stew suddenly making me feel nauseous. "What are you talking about?" "2 men coming here?" "Yes," he said, a strange, feverish excitement entering his voice. "They'll come over. We'll have a drink, get comfortable, and then we'll all go upstairs to our room." He paused and his gaze drifted over my body, lingering on my breasts, my hips, in a way he hadn't in years. But it wasn't a look of desire. It was a look of ownership, of appraisal. And they will be with you. While I watch. I felt the blood drain from my face. My breath caught in my throat. You want to watch other men. Touch me. The words felt like poison in my mouth. I want to see you alive again. Amelia, he said, his voice dropping to a low, persuasive hum. I want to see that fire in your eyes. Imagine it. The thrill of the forbidden. Two strong, handsome men, their only focus being your pleasure, their hands on your skin, their mouths exploring you, arching your back, calling out their names, and me, seeing you like that, seeing you completely unrestrained for the first time. He was painting a picture, a vulgar, terrifying mural on the canvas of our marriage. He described how one of them, a man named Leo, was built like a lumberjack, with rough hands that would know how to hold me down. The other, David, was younger, leaner, with a clever mouth and knowing eyes. He spoke of the sounds I would make, the way my body would tremble. He described positions, acts, sensations, with a clinical yet lurid detail that made my skin crawl. He wanted them to take me on our bed, on the floor, against the wall, every surface of our sanctuary defiled, the heat of their breath on my neck, the weight of their bodies pinning me down, the scent of their skin mingling with mine. He spoke of it all, and the most horrifying part was the undisguised pleasure in his own voice as he did. He wasn't just suggesting it, he was already living it in his mind. My mind was screaming, this wasn't about my pleasure, this was about him. This was some twisted, degrading fantasy he'd concocted to feel powerful, to feel a thrill at my expense. No, I whispered, shaking my head. No, Richard, absolutely not. That is the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. Don't be so dramatic. Amelia, he sighed, finishing his whiskey. It's just sex. It doesn't have to mean anything. Think of it as an adventure, our secret. It would mean the end of us, I said, my voice gaining strength. If you think for 1 second that I would ever agree to that, you're crazier than I thought. I turned my back on him, my hands gripping the edge of the counter until my knuckles were white. The beautiful meal I'd prepared was forgotten. The warmth of the kitchen felt like a furnace. I heard him place the glass down on the counter with a sharp click and walk out of the room without another word. The next 2 days were a form of psychological torture. He alternated between icy silence and bursts of manipulative affection. One moment, he wouldn't even look at me. The next, he'd come up behind me while I was washing dishes and wrap his arms around my waist, whispering in my ear, "Just think about it, honey, the freedom of it. No inhibitions." He would talk about how beautiful I'd look, flushed and panting, caught between two men. He was trying to seduce me into my own humiliation. He made it clear that this wasn't a negotiation. He had given them our address. They were coming on Saturday at 8 p.m. My refusal was merely an obstacle to be overcome. I felt trapped in my own home. I looked at our wedding photos on the mantelpiece, two smiling, hopeful young people, and felt a profound sense of loss. Who was this man I was married to, and who was the woman who had let herself become so small, so quiet, that he thought he could do this to her? I considered leaving. I packed a small bag in my mind a dozen times. But where would I go? What would I say? My husband is trying to pimp me out to his internet friends. It sounded insane. And a part of me, a foolish, loyal part, still clung to the hope that he would snap out of it. That my Richard, the man who held my hand when my mother passed away, was still in there somewhere. Saturday came, a gray, oppressive day. I felt a knot of dread tightening in my stomach with every tick of the clock. I didn't get dressed up. I wore an old pair of jeans and a loose-fitting sweater, a kind of pathetic armor. Richard, however, was dressed impeccably in a crisp shirt and trousers. He was humming, a cheerful grating sound that made me want to scream. At exactly 8 o'clock, the doorbell rang. My heart hammered against my ribs. Richard shot me a look, a silent command, "Behave." He opened the door, and there they were, Leo and David. Leo was just as Richard had described Big Faro, broad-shouldered, with a thick beard and calloused-looking hands. David was slighter, with sharp and intelligent eyes that seemed to take in the whole room and me in a single glance. They weren't monsters. They were just men. They carried a bottle of expensive-looking wine. It felt surreal, like a bizarre dinner party from hell. They came into the living room. Richard was the gracious host, offering them drinks, making small talk about the weather, about sports. I sat on the armchair in the corner, feeling like a specimen under a microscope. I could feel their eyes on me, assessing, curious. David's gaze was particularly unnerving. It wasn't lustful, not yet. It was analytical, as if he was trying to solve a puzzle. The puzzle of me. Richard sat on the ottoman in front of me, placing his hands on my knees. His touch felt proprietary, possessive. "Amelia is a little nervous," he said to them with a chuckle, as if sharing a charming little secret. "She's shy." I wanted to vomit. I wanted to claw his hands off my legs. David smiled faintly, a slow, knowing smile. He spoke for the first time, his voice smoother than I expected. "There's no need to be nervous. Amelia, we're all adults here. The goal is for everyone to have a good time." The way he said it, so calm, so reasonable, was somehow more terrifying than any aggression would have been. He was normalizing the nightmare. What would you have done? Would you have screamed? Would you have run? Tell me in the comments. I need to know I'm not crazy. Richard squeezed my knees. "It's time. Honey," he whispered, his voice thick with anticipation. "Let's go upstairs." And that was it. The breaking point. All the fear, the confusion, the humiliation of the past few days crystallized into a single sharp point of clarity. I looked from Richard's eager, feverish face to the two strangers who were waiting to claim a piece of my body, and something inside me snapped. I slowly removed his hands from my knees. I stood up, my legs feeling surprisingly steady. The room went quiet. 3 pairs of eyes were fixed on me. "No," I said. My voice didn't shake. It was calm, clear, and cold. Richard's smile faltered. "Amelia, don't make a scene." "I'm not making a scene." "Richard," I said, looking directly at him, "I am making a decision. This is not happening. Not tonight. Not ever." I turned my gaze to the 2 men. "I'm sorry you wasted your time. You should leave." Leo looked surprised, even a little chagrined. But David just nodded slowly. That analytical look back in his eyes. It was Richard who exploded. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed, grabbing my arm. "We had an agreement." "You had an agreement," I shot back, pulling my arm from his grasp. "You made a plan that involved my body without my consent. That's not an agreement. Richard, that's an assault waiting to happen. Don't you dare be so dramatic," he snarled, his face turning red. "After everything I've given you. This house, this life, I ask for this one thing. This one thing to make me feel alive, and you throw it in my face. This one thing I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. You're asking me to sacrifice my dignity, my self-respect, my very soul, so you can get off on it. You talk about feeling alive for the first time in 10 years? Richard, I'm the one who feels alive, and it's because I'm finally saying no to you." His face contorted with rage. "If you walk out of this room, Amelia, we are done. I mean it. This marriage is over. It was the ultimate threat, the one he thought would break me." I looked at him, at the man I had loved, the father of my children, and I felt nothing, just a vast, empty space where my love used to be. The threat wasn't a threat anymore. It was a promise, an escape hatch. "I know," I said softly. "It already is." I turned and walked out of the living room, past the hallway table with our wedding photo, and I didn't look back. I didn't grab a coat. I just opened the front door and stepped out into the cold, rainy night. The shock of the damp air on my face was like a baptism. I was free. I walked down the street, the rhythm of my footsteps on the wet pavement a steady drumbeat of liberation. I had no idea where I was going, but for the first time in so long, I was the one in control of my direction. I ended up at my friend Claire's house, soaking wet and trembling, but sane. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me into her arms without a single question. The weeks that followed were a blur of lawyers and paperwork, of separating 2 decades of a shared life into 2 separate piles. Richard tried to call, his messages a pathetic mix of rage and desperate apologies, but I knew it wasn't remorse he felt. It was the fury of a man who had lost control. I never spoke to him again. Here is the lesson I learned, the one that truly matters. This story isn't just about escaping a manipulative husband or a toxic marriage. It's about reclamation. For years, my body was a landscape Richard had claimed but refused to cultivate. My desires, my sensuality, my very identity as a woman had become a story he was trying to write, a narrative where I was just a supporting character in his dark fantasy. By walking out that door, I wasn't just leaving him, I was taking my story back. I was reclaiming the ownership of my own skin, my own pleasure, my own soul. The most profound act of self-love is not allowing anyone else to write your narrative or define your worth. Your body is your own sacred ground, and you alone, get to decide who is worthy of being invited inside. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that explore the forbidden corners of the human heart. Let me know in the comments what you'd like me to talk about next. Until then, remember to be the author of your own story.